Okay, welcome back, folks. This is House Corrections and Institutions Committee. It is Thursday, February 5th. And we are back on the Capitol bill, and we are working on section 9 and also a little bit on section 10. And we're going to start out with the Drinking Water Revolving Loan Fund. And we have Emily Bird with us. Emily, welcome. This is really your first time on your own testifying here. And we're used to Eric Blatt, so bring us some new light.
Issues to fill. Good afternoon, Madam Chair and Committee. Thank you for having me in today. My name is Emily Bird. I'm the Water Investment Division Director at DEC, and I'm joined by my colleague Patrick Monks, who is our Water Infrastructure Finance Program Manager. And today we're going to do a walkthrough of sections 9 and 10. Do you mind advancing to the next slide? And here's an outline of our presentation. Going to start off with a table giving an overview of the line items that we're going to be talking through today in sections 9 and 10 of the capital budget adjustment request. And then from there, going to dive into section 10, which is on clean water, and just do a quick reminder of the Clean Water Board and budget process that informs the allocation of those dollars under section 10. And then I'm going to turn it over to Patrick, who will give an overview of our state revolving fund programs. And that will touch on both section 9, the drinking water state revolving fund, the SRF match, and then section 10, clean water with the clean water SRF match and pollution control grants. And then there's a couple of policy proposals that are at the end of the governor's recommended capital budget adjustment bill, and we're going to walk through those with you as well. I understand there were some questions about the status of some older capital bill funds through the municipal pollution control grant, and we will also touch on that when we cover the municipal pollution control grant.
So one thing, I'm quickly looking through your handout, and one thing that we usually get, it's not in the handout, but I would like to get, is a list of communities and projects that will be receiving drinking water revolving loan fund money, clean water revolving loan fund, and municipal pollution. We usually get those forms. It shows what communities, the priority, where they are on the priority list, if they've gone for a bond vote, or if they're due for a bond vote, so we can figure out the cash flow. We always get a list. We always have to ask. We used to automatically get it up to a few years ago. Now we have to ask. So I'd like to know what communities are receiving money. FY 25, 26, and what's anticipated for FY 27. So we can figure out the cash flow. So that would be for drinking water and clean water, and also for the municipal pollution grants. We need, because we're going to get questions from colleagues. I've got a project in my town. When is the money due? Why didn't we get the money? What's going on? And it's good for us to have those documents. Plus it helps us when we do markup.
Great. Okay. Yeah, I think Patrick will touch on some resources that will help with that, and we can certainly send follow-up materials to file with your committee as well.
That's important for us to have that.
Great. Thank you. Next slide. Okay, so here's a simplified table that should correspond with the row numbers in your master spreadsheet for the capital budget adjustment. Today, we're going to be walking through for row 73, the 20% state match to our federal drinking water state revolving fund capitalization grant. And that will help us with funding, completing the match needed. That's for our federal fiscal year 25 award, and then projecting out what is needed for our next federal award for federal fiscal year 26. And so we're coming in through this budget adjustment for an additional $2.5 million requested there. And Patrick is going to get into some more of the detail on why there is an increased ask in this space. And it has to do with how things work in the federal budget related to congressionally designated spending. So we'll get into that as part of our presentation today.
So that's the 590,000.
That's the 2.5 million, the 2.498 million that is requested as part of budget adjustment this year.
So where's that 590?
That was appropriated already in state fiscal year 27, I believe.
Bonded.
Bond.
Yep.
Bonded the 590. Okay, I was looking in the wrong column.
Okay.
So in 25, I mean FY 26, you didn't have any appropriation from us because you had money, the previous appropriations that you hadn't quite gotten out the door because some things had changed. So you didn't need any money in the FY 26 budget.
Yes,
That's why there's nothing there in the FY 26 budget, because they didn't need it last year. So we anticipated 590,000 for FY 27. The governor has proposed is an additional 2.498 in cash. Not bonded, but cash.
Weird number.
So we'll walk you through the details behind that as we move through our presentation. And we were in last week with Ben Green, where we were able to present to you on the budget adjustment request for Waterbury Dam project overrun. So that was covered last week, but happy to answer any follow-up questions on that. And then moving down to section 10, these are the DEC line items only that we're covering today. But this is part of an interagency budget process. So we'll be addressing today row 88, state match to the Clean Water State Revolving Fund. That's the 20% match that, similar to the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund, is going to help make our federal fiscal year 25 award whole, and then also cover what we project as need for federal fiscal year 26. And then we will also address municipal pollution control grants, which are proposed at $3.9 million this year.
Committee follow that?
Sure.
No, I'm serious.
No.
Did the committee
No.
follow that? Because that's
I
brand
want it.
new for a lot
I
of
want it.
folks. Okay, so what she just said was the Clean Water Revolving Fund, the 1.577, 600 goes towards our full match for the federal fiscal year 25 amount that's available to us. And then, and I'd like to know what that amount is of the 1.577. And then the remainder of that would go towards the federal fiscal year 26 amount. And federal fiscal year 26 ends in September 30th of this year.
So we receive our award notification for federal fiscal year 26 in the July timeframe, and usually get that grant in-house sometime over the summer and then have some time beyond that. So it's slightly out of sync with the federal fiscal year calendar.
You also have, I'm just going to throw a curveball, but the feds give you 18 months to match the money. So we don't have to put up the full state match to receive the federal fiscal year 26 match. Because they do it over an 18 months period, which then crosses over to other fiscal years on our end. So we don't need to put the full amount up front. We can do that over a couple of our fiscal years and not lose those federal dollars. It's complicated.
Yeah,
It's real complicated.
appreciate the complexity there. We typically try to make sure that we have secured the match needed at the start of the grant so that there aren't any surprises in terms of our ability to draw down the full grant amount. But there certainly is, as part of our work planning with the EPA, we indicate how the match will be paced out over the course of that grant. And so can look at some capital considerations. If I may just, Patrick, is there anything that you'd like to add to that?
That says it well. It certainly has complexity on our end as well to get that spread out over time versus upfront.
As in the past, and this isn't you folks, but in the past, what was happening, they would ask for all the money up front. And then it didn't have to be matched for 1.5 to 2 years, which really put the capital bill in a bind because there was money sitting out there that they didn't have to use to match the feds for another year, but they were sitting on capital dollars. So we've changed that over the years to make sure that our match kind of tracks what would be available in our fiscal year, what would be available from the feds. Does that make sense to folks?
What are, in the past, we used to do, math, when we were funding a project and get a certain amount of match dollars and a certain amount of grant dollars. And then at some point in the past, we moved to using all the match dollars first into the direction of EPA. So I wonder if that is one thing switched to us getting money versus spread out over time.
Now we spread it out over time. So you can't bank it because it was being banked. Well,
Could you just detail again what you said the 1.577 million is the full match, but did you break down what the federal fiscal years are by like 25 and 26? What was the amount for both of those?
Sure, yes, and we'll get into a little bit more of the dynamic at play with our federal award that caused this. But it's roughly $750,000 delta that's needed to fully fund our federal fiscal year 25 award, and then the balance is projected as match need for us to bring in the new federal fiscal year 26 award. And we're going to get into this in a little bit more detail a little later in the presentation, or we can jump ahead to that piece of the presentation if you would like to cover that now.
So just a quick point of clarification, you're saying that in order to fully meet the needs from what's presented in this little spreadsheet is 750,000 additional dollars?
it's up to 1.577. 750,000 of the 1.577 is to make our FY 25, the federal fiscal year 25 whole.
Correct.
Okay, so that will draw down as much money as possible that we're allowed through the feds for their federal fiscal year 25.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
And then the balance of that will go towards the federal fiscal year 26 that begins October 1st of this year. But the federal fiscal year, what the feds do for the amounts that are coming to the state is over an 18-month period that the state can match those dollars. The state doesn't have to put up the full amount for FY, for federal fiscal year 26.
Okay.
So that's an important thing to ask for the remainder of that 1.577. How much of the federal fiscal year 26 does it draw down? It's not the full amount, I would say.
So what we are requesting here would cover the full amount needed that we're projecting for the FY 26 federal award.
For over that 18 months, beginning in from October of last year to October of this year.
Oh, apologies. So the current grant that we're operating under is the federal fiscal year 25, and it came in higher than anticipated. Maybe it would be helpful to jump ahead to the slide that addresses this. And so right now we have already in hand our FY 25 federal award. That came in late last summer, right, Patrick? And it came in higher than we anticipated. And this slide helps to kind of walk through the reasoning for that. So each year we estimate what is needed for match based on an anticipated federal grant. And grants are typically consistent year over year. So assuming roughly level funding is a safe assumption. At the federal level in the federal budget, congressionally directed spending or earmarks are deducted from the same pot of money that funds the state revolving funds. And so depending on the status of funding for earmarks, it can cut into what we would receive for our SRF grant. And
those earmarks specific to Vermont Or
Some
is,
of them are.
so is it their whole pot on the federal level and all the earmarks that come out of that regardless what state it
That's
is?
correct. So there's one pool of funding at the national level. All the CDSs, the earmarks, they go through the congressional review process, the ones that get funded, and skim off the top of that pot of money. And then what's left gets allocated out to states based on a formula. And so at the national level, the fact that there are earmarks can cut into what's available to states. And this dynamic affects Vermont as well as other states. And so it can make it really difficult for us to anticipate what our federal grant will be. We were expecting CDS to bite into quite a bit of our FY26 federal award. But with everything that was happening at the federal level and the budget, there was a continuing resolution that ended up without funding the CDS projects. And so we ended up with an unexpected increase in our federal grant for FY25. So now we're coming back to your committee this session, looking to make the match need for that increased grant amount whole.
And that's the 750.
That's correct.
All right, Troy.
So to clarify, you don't need more money because earmarks skimmed too much off. You're asking for more money because there's more money to match.
Correct. For
Okay.
FY26. Yep.
Right. Okay. I was
And-
about to ask for a list of those earmarks or where I could find them, just so I could start sending some angry letters, but.
On that, we have been engaged with our congressional
Yeah.
delegation on this really challenging dynamic, and they've been incredibly responsive to the concern. And they are working to put in a proposal through the Water Resource Development Act of 2026, or WRDA, to hold harmless the SRF from
Nice.
CDS in the future. So we are expressing a lot of support for that proposal and hope that this won't be a dynamic that we have to juggle in the future for our SRF program.
Let me know if you need a signature.
I appreciate that.
So members can see how this plays out. So if we can match what we're allowed to match is money in that big pot. 750 will allow us to bring down more than we anticipated, right? Which then means those dollars will get back to our municipalities quicker. Because these dollars all go to our municipalities for, well, we're in drinking water, right?
This dynamic is playing out for both. Yeah.
So it's both drinking water and clean water. So the more money we can get in, the quicker it goes out to our towns to do the infrastructure upgrades that they have planned. That's how it works.
Okay. So that's a little bit of the background on the increased match ask for both drinking water and clean water to make our FY25 grant whole. That's the one we already have in hand. And then also to cover the match needed that we're projecting for federal fiscal year 26. And then in addition to those two line items in the budget adjustment request, we also have the municipal pollution control grant request.
So I want to go back up to the drinking water. The 2.498, how much of that is to match the federal fiscal year 25?
I believe roughly half of it is to make the prior year whole.
At 1 point,
Apologies, I don't have the number right off the top of my head, but about $1.2 million. And I can send a follow-up note with more exact figures. Apologies for not having that handy right this moment.
That's about,
Yeah, about half.
that's to make federal FY25 whole.
Mhm.
And then the remaining half is a guesstimate as to what we're gonna need for FY26, federal
That's right.
FY26.
We'll receive a notification of our FY26 award amounts typically in July 1st.
even though it's almost at the end of the 26 fiscal year.
Yeah,
Because on the federal level, it's been in place since October of 25. You've got conflicting fiscal years
Yes, that makes it confusing.
between the state and the feds. They're not on the same time frame. And on the federal level, they don't have to give the money up front. They have a year and a half to dole out their portion. Which then changes our schedule because our fiscal years are different.
Mhm.
So it gets a little complicated.
Well, this is the first time this has happened. People are asking for money for years ago. That, no,
I think,
No, I think it's the first time without so many earmarks.
yeah,
Which then means there's more money.
yeah, okay.
I think there's always a little bit of, because we're projecting the need and then we come back and may need to reconcile and shore up. So there's always a little bit of flux there, but we'll keep a very close eye on that and make sure that, especially if there's concern around cash flow, we'll see if there's anything we can do to expedite the spend down of the state match sooner in the process, if that would be helpful.
So I'm gonna throw you a curveball, and if you don't know the answer, that's fine, but the IIJA, Infrastructure Jobs Act, we got a lot of money for our clean water and drinking water on that. And municipal pollution grants. So we'd like to know at some point where we are on all of that. I'm not sure of that later on in your slides, but we have, and that was a 4-year, 5-year
5 year.
So-
Up on the last of the 5 years.
for FY 27,
Federal 26.
federal 26.
This is the grants we will apply for and receive this year.
And it ends in October of this year.
That's when grants roughly go out, and then we'll have 12 to 18 months to run those down. This is the last year we'll get, this is the last grants we'll get under IIJA.
For which fiscal year?
I call them the federal, it was federal 26. That's what they're labeled.
So the federal 26 expires September 30th of this year.
Yes,
So then there's no more IIJA money after that.
that's correct.
So if we're gonna get any of it, and we did put aside blocks of money to pull all those down.
The match for those
Match.
grants, yes.
So we're whole on that.
Mhm.
But I would also like to have a list of projects that are being done with that as well. There's a lot of money going out to our communities for wastewater, drinking water. And there's municipal pollution money in that too. For that, I believe.
The pollution control grants.
Yeah. Because I'd like to get all those lists of municipalities.
Sure, we can follow up with that request. Thank you. All right, Dirk, if you don't mind advancing, just a quick reminder around section 10, clean water. This section of the capital bill is recommended through the Clean Water Board's annual budget process. And it ends up going out to multiple agencies across state government. And I looks like you'll be hearing from at least Vermont Housing Conservation Board today and likely other agencies on this as well. So each year we look at what is available from the Clean Water Fund and the revenue streams that support our Clean Water Fund Special Fund. And there has been a legacy of roughly $10 million from the capital bill also contributing to this body of work. And so each year the Clean Water Board convenes public meetings where they put forward a budget recommendation for this whole budget, including Clean Water Fund and capital bill dollars. It goes through the public review process. There's public comment and public hearing. And then the board makes a recommended budget to the governor, which then ultimately gets folded into the governor's budget recommendation. So when you're reviewing section 10, that is part of this Clean Water Board budget process. So here's a snapshot for the state fiscal year 2027 clean water budget. roughly $30 million are coming in as projected revenue for the three revenue streams under the Clean Water Fund. We're requesting $10 million additional from the capital bill. That's reflected in the budget adjustment. And then there's an additional 5.3 million of unanticipated revenue that came in higher than we previously projected from prior years that we've allocated as one-time funds to address some budget gaps. And so that brings the clean water budget to a total of $45.2 million. In statute, the state of Vermont has committed to funding the Clean Water Initiative at $50 to $60 million a year in order to meet the federal EPA's expectation of our plan for Lake Champlain cleanup.
So I just want to be clear on this 5.3 million estimated state fiscal year 27. One-time funds from unallocated or unreserved clean water fund revenue. Is any of that through or any capital budgeting that also includes cash? Or is it just from the state budget general fund?
This is just from the Clean Water Fund Special Fund. So it's a prior year budget or prior years closing out with more revenue than we anticipated. And so we roll those over to the next fiscal year budget and we target them toward one-time uses that help to supplement our base programming. So that 5.3 is just the Clean Water Fund Special Fund.
So was that more revenues? We switched. So is that more revenues that came in than anticipated, like from the meals tax, property transfer tax, clean water surcharge, and any unclaimed bottle deposits? There was more that came in than we were anticipating.
Yes, okay, correct. Although that trend is slowing down. And so it's looking like that this might be, our revenue trends are slowing down and it's looking like it's turning in the other direction. So we're certainly monitoring that very, very closely and adjusting our budget as needed.
So the 10 million is what we usually carve out. If you remember last year when we did the 2-year budget, for this particular section, the clean water section, we had a 10 million on the bottom line, but it hadn't been allocated to different line items because we wait for the Clean Water Fund Board to make their recommendation. So that's what section 10 is. Thank you. Does that make sense to folks?
Yep.
Great. And I think with that, I'm going to turn it over to Patrick to walk you through a little bit more detail on the state revolving fund and PC grants. Thank you.
Thank you.
People confused?
It's just.
Less than I always had is.
Yeah, actually.
It starts making sense.
It's because it.
You're for?
Yeah.
Just thanks, huh?
Yeah, and then it's not tracked all the way through on the
Oh.
line.
That for 18 months.
Okay, let me explain the spreadsheet here that
Yeah.
Sean brought up. If you look on FY 26 and FY 27 in section 10. Okay. FY 26, we have these items with dollar amounts that are allocated for different items, correct? Water quality grants, you have municipal pollution grants, all the way down, and it shows a total of 10 million in FY 26. If you look at FY 27, there was nothing in the columns for those projects except a total of 10 million. Okay, so we put aside last year in FY 27, $10 million to go towards section 10. The Clean Water Fund Board, the Clean Water Fund Board meets during the summer and fall and make recommendations in the fall for the upcoming fiscal year. And that recommendation includes the 10 million in our capital budget. So we got the report, I think it was like, I don't know, October, November, somewhere around there. We got the report in terms of what the board was recommending to us to allocate that 10 million. And what the board recommended was 1.5 in water quality grants for ag, 1.577 for the clean water, 3.9 for the municipal, So everything that you see in the gray columns in FY 27 that's highlighted in yellow for each of those projects is what the Clean Water Fund Board recommended. So that's why the columns in the blue in FY 27 are blank. As we wait for the recommendation.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay, so Sean asked that question, so I thought it would be good to explain it to everyone. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Patrick.
Thank you. I'm Patrick Monks, I'm the program manager with the Water Infrastructure Finance Program at DEC, and I'll give you a quick overview. Chair Emmons did a great job describing what the SRF does. This is just a tad more detail. So combined, the drinking water and clean water SRF funds provide essential funding for municipal and drinking water projects. We provide low interest loans. Technically, our loans don't charge interest. They do charge an administrative fee that works the same way. And that interest rate ranges from 0 to 2.75% for municipal and private entities. Some of our loans are offered with what we call subsidy or loan forgiveness. The amount of subsidy that we're able to offer is dictated by the terms of the grant that we get from EPA each year. SRF funding is often combined with other state, local, and federal funding. And all construction projects are ranked using our priority system.
So maybe we can go back and just talk about what, for infrastructure projects, what is it that we fund?
I have a couple slides on that.
Back, okay.
Just in terms of the priority system, in any given year, we have typically more demand for funds than we have funds. So all projects are scored and ranked, and funding is made available to the highest scoring projects. The way the state revolving fund works, each year on the left side of the slide, you'll see we get a capitalization grant, and during the BIL years, we get multiple grants from EPA. Those are combined with the 20% state match into the revolving fund. We make disbursements out to eligible projects that are receiving loans from us, and those loans are repaid back. So over time, the body of the fund is able to grow and fund more projects as demand increases over time.
So in order for those dollars to go out to a community, the community needs to have a bond vote on their project. So their project could be a $10 or $15 million project, but the full amount of 10 or 15 is not paid for totally by the state.
Yes, they have to have the bonding capacity to borrow that money in the first place. On the clean water side, we offer loans for planning, design, and construction. The municipal side, a lot of our loan activities for wastewater treatment, stormwater projects. On the private side, some wastewater and also stormwater. Municipal projects do receive first priority, so we only fund private projects after all eligible municipal projects are funded.
What would be a private project?
Could have on the natural resource side, typically where we see more of the private activity would be projects seeking to do stream corridor protection, river restoration. And we could also have an indirect wastewater system on the private side. That really seen any go forward in the last few years since I've been here, some on the natural resource side, but that's strong demand on the municipal side. So that typically uses all our available funds. Drinking water side is very similar. We're also offering funds for planning, design, and construction. Eligible systems are limited to what are public water systems, meaning they're regulated under the Safe Drinking Water Act by the Drinking Water and Groundwater Protection Division. So they can be privately owned, but public regulated water systems. For wells, which are referred to as sources in drinking water lingo, drinking water treatment, all sorts of infrastructure, drinking water tanks, pipes, etc.
So folks remember the Guildhall Essex Courthouse conversation with the sprinkler system?
Well, yeah,
The town drinking water system couldn't handle the sprinklers, and I asked the question, have they been in contact with DEC? about possible funding for updating their drinking water system. So
Okay,
I don't know,
right here from,
you may not have heard from them or you may.
maybe they're starting with the drinking water groundwater protection division, or the folks who assess the eligibility and work with the system to help steer them in the right direction, and they come to us for funding.
So if they pursued that, they might have some opportunity to get some state funds, which is through the other part of our capital.
Each year, we issue our annual intended use plan for both clean water and drinking water. It's a federal requirement, and it's essentially spells out everything the program is up to in terms of what do we have for funding, how our priority system works. That includes the project priority list, which again is the list of all the projects that have applied for construction funding, and it ranks them.
And that's what we need to see. Yes.
Yep, if you should have a copy of this presentation, these are links to the intended use plans, and at the included with each intended use plan are those priority lists. And we can go through those and provide you like an update as to where last year's project or the current year's projects are in terms of, you know, to your point, whether they've in line to get a bond vote.
Yeah, so we need to see that so that we can see how our money is flowing and what the real need is out there. We need to see that.
Just in summary, over the last 5 years, on the clean water side, we've issued 105 million in loans to over 120 loans. Drinking water side, 154 million, over 172 loans. Past year or two have been really busy. Yeah, and at least on the clean water side, should be on pace to have a record year. So just a summary of the capital cap grant and match requirements, as you've heard. Each capitalization grant requires 20% match. 1-to-5 ratio as discussed. In terms of the total grants received from EPA over the last 5 years, clean water side, 74.8 million. And on the drinking water side, 187.6 million.
Is that fiscal year or calendar?
That is state fiscal, because we report EPA on our activities for the state fiscal year, I believe.
And did any of that include the IIJA?
Yes. Yes, largely the IIJA funds are in effect blended in. I mean, some are very specific. Some are for emerging contaminant projects, so they can only go to projects that qualify. Some are for lead service line replacement. But a big chunk of the IIJ funds are what are called supplemental to the base grant. So they're managed the same way, but yes.
That's all included in these totals.
Yes, not differentiated. Yep, that's total activity.
We can get from Scott how much for all of that. We put aside, as I don't remember, it was millions, so we put aside 19 million. There's 8-9 million for municipal pollution. We put aside a lot of.
It's been a huge, an essential infusion to the program. I mean, it provided additional funding these past 5 years. But again, those loan dollars will be, revolving back into the fund to fund future projects. So
that's the goal, Mary.
So it's safe to say that the revolving loan funds are revolving well?
Yes.
Okay, because there was 1 year I asked that question. The former person that provided the information after he told us they really weren't revolving well. So I'm happy that.
Yes, I mean, it's always work with our borrowers to have their projects move along in a timely fashion to get to completion so they can enter repayment. But we have lots of small communities that face any number of challenges. And so it's always a little bit of a challenge there, but they're definitely revolving back out. I skipped the changes to match because that was covered. So municipal pollution control grants. Are grants, they're not loans. State revolving loan fund is loans. Based on the funding received from the legislature each year, higher scoring projects may receive grant funds. They're typically I've been with the program, I guess, going on 5 years this summer. I believe all the pollution control grants have gone to projects that were also receiving a state revolving loan fund loan. So they're out there, they're issued in conjunction with loans.
Can you just offer, like, how do the municipal patrol pollution control grants differ from the clean water grants?
In my presentation, when I talk about grants, I'm talking about the grant that comes from EPA
Yeah.
to us. And that capitalizes our fund
Yep.
for loans. These are separate. They're state funded
Okay,
and they're a grant that goes to the community.
yeah, okay.
So if
How are the
you're
projects different?
they're typically not. Municipal pollution control grants are almost always going to go to wastewater treatment projects because they are the highest scoring often on our priority system. And they're essential funding for the communities that get them. They're not a huge chunk of the funding that we offer. I mean, our funding, we may have identified 80 million in need, and we have 4 million in pollution control grants available. So it'll go to the top 2, 3, 4 high scoring projects.
And do some projects get them from both funding sources?
They usually get both a loan and a pollution control grant.
So do we still fund for phosphorus removal, the full 100%? Does the state still fund that for the communities? Because we did that way back. I don't know if we still do that.
There's not currently, no. We receive a certain percentage of the capitalization grants from EPA need to go out as loan forgiveness. It's difficult to offer 100% forgiveness to any given project category and to ensure that those funds are, equitably distributed to all projects or to as many projects as possible. We also find that when we offer 100% loan forgiveness, it's a little harder to keep the project scope in check. Whereas keeping some skin in the game on part of the borrower may be helping to keep overall costs down.
But I do remember there were phosphorus removal projects in municipalities that the municipal pollution grants paid 100%.
Oh, pollution control grant, my mistake.
Yeah, that we pay 100% of the phosphorus removal upgrades. Do we still-
Depending on the amount of PC grant, PC for pollution control, it's easier to say PC grant availability, a project may exceed availability.
We've been behind in payments to these municipalities, but we did catch up in that.
And also, yes, that projects can stick around for a little while.
And that's
And to
why,
be clear, we fund up to 35% of total costs,
so that's why we need to see the list for the municipal pollution grants in terms of what's the priority, what's been done, what's in the hopper, so that we know how far down that list. We are told 3.9 million. We need to know how far down that list it's anticipated to go. Because right now, we're just seeing numbers on a page.
sure.
We don't have the data to back up those numbers. We have the overview of what the program is, but we don't have the data to make our decision when we do market.
Okay.
And I'm asking for the data
Good. Thank you.
so that the committee knows what we're funding. Because right now, I'm not so sure the committee members know what we're funding.
And higher priority points are more likely to get the money accurate.
Yes.
Asked a number of times.
Yeah, I mean, I had I went to the Central Vermont Chamber of Commerce dinner the other night at the Capitol Plaza, and a woman from Barry tapped me on the shoulder. And she was like, we have a non-drinking, water, notice because there's carcinogens in the water. So I was just curious is that on your all radar? Or is that Barry's situation to get out in front of that?
Certainly, the do not drink order would have come from our department.
Yeah,
So
that's troubling,
absolutely.
in Vermont, that our people aren't being able to drink safe water. And do you know about this or?
Personally, I don't, but I wouldn't necessarily.
Right.
I'm sure the folks in the drinking water and the groundwater protection division do know, and, they're the ones who are tasked with both ensuring that systems are testing and monitoring to identify, pollutants as they're encountered, and to provide the technical assistance, and to also steer them to us to provide whatever assistance they might need and that we can offer. They certainly wouldn't be out there without the state knowing.
Yeah, yeah. That's where, like a situation like that, just be nice to have that list of, definitely chair of that. Thanks very much.
You're welcome.
So I don't want to move on to this until folks are clear. And see if you have any questions about the drinking water revolving loan fund, what they've presented so far, clean water revolving loan fund, and municipal pollution grants. Do you have enough information to make a decision on markup?
Well. Be nice to see the,
We need the
yeah,
updated ones.
yeah,
To see the list.
yeah.
Yeah.
We absolutely need to see those.
If I may, this is Emily Bird. We can follow up with a direct submittal of the intended use plans, and attached to that has the priority project list. It's also linked in our presentation file. And so that is a good indication of the projects that they're ranked in the queue. And then this spring, there's another batch of projects that are submitted for our next intended use plan. So we can certainly follow up with a list of projects that are in the queue, and happy to answer any questions on that.
So we have to get through town meeting, because some of those towns are going to be voting on some of those projects. And it's going to list what the project is as well.
I just had a question based upon what Sean had asked you, Representative Swain. Being that you're one of the top people within this water, municipal water, but also clean water and all of that, why were you not aware of the Bailey project that's having problems right now?
There are hundreds of regulated systems, and my role in the Water Infrastructure Finance Program is to administer the state revolving loan fund pollution control grant programs. I don't have involvement with monitoring results from all those hundreds of water systems.
I just didn't know if there was like communication amongst the team that kind of talks about the different issues that are out there that may need to be.
Oh, absolutely. The project development and my team meet weekly with staff from the Drinking Water and Groundwater Protection Division, tracking projects from the earliest of stages that might need assistance, working with those systems to guide them through. And once those projects do come to us, coordinating with them in terms of, that Drinking Water Division reviews the preliminary engineering reports, engineering service agreements. When it moves on, through our process.
Thanks.
So Troy has the lists.
I have
Is it drinking water or clean water?
plenty drinking, but I'm about to, clean water didn't.
No, it's the whole thing.
No, that, yeah,
No,
that all goes
it's
to.
all of it together.
Oh, I see.
All of it's got.
I know it's on our website, on our webpage.
Well,
The paper copies.
Okay.
This is drinking water.
The other one.
So let's move on to, there is language that's being proposed on the back of the bill. Get my bill. It's being proposed. Page starts on page 6 of our book. And 7 and 8. Okay. Go out your book. The governor's budget.
What page did you say?
Starts on 7. And it's basic, it starts on 6,
Six,
but it really goes to 7 and 8.
My first slide covers section 8. Go ahead. Okay.
Yep.
Section 8, the proposed language covers 24 VSA, section 4752, which includes a definition of disadvantaged municipality. This has bearing on just the drinking water, SRF side. And where it refers to municipality, it also refers to privately owned regulated systems within the municipality. So the term is important because if a borrower is a disadvantaged community, they can qualify for a longer loan term, which reduces the annual payments, the lower administrative fee, potentially down to 0%, and they can potentially qualify for up to 50% loan forgiveness.
So it's important to see what the definition of disadvantaged municipality is.
Under the current definition, it means a municipality that has a median household income that is less than the state average median income, and that the user rates are greater than 1%. So that category, we describe it as it's lower income and their user rates are pretty high.
What is the median household income in the state? Do you know? Does anyone know?
It's around 80, isn't it?
It varies widely by community, that's for sure. It varies widely by community, but the state,
No,
that gets lower. I think I would have guessed 60.
you know what? I just,
60.
It is
and I
81 to 85.
yeah,
The state
Yeah, the new
median,
state.
median.
who was right?
You were right, Sean.
Was
For the record.
It's not 81.
I gotta get you where I can, Patrick, because it's.
I didn't say it. I was not involved in that. I just,
And so in the second category, okay, sorry.
Just a really quick question. So you're going to 40 years with that. Do the water systems last 40 years?
They can if they have to have an asset life determination that the useful life of the asset can't exceed the loan term.
Correct. So 40 seems like a lot. So,
Yeah, some infrastructure,
okay.
has that or more.
Just as long as it's, someone's thinking about it.
Yes.
Thanks.
Well,
I'm sorry, where's that 1%? Because I see 2.
no, that's.
On A.
Oh, it's on A, sorry, I was on B.
That was page.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Chop.
Yeah. See it.
And so then the second category would be, a water system or a municipality whose median household income is above the state average, but whose user rates are greater than 0.5% of their median household income. So not low income, but very high user rates. And if they meet those categories, then as we go through the loan review process, we follow a series of steps to first extend the loan term, lower the interest, and then offer principal forgiveness to get them to the point where their user rates are no more than 1% of their income. I know it's
Go ahead.
It would seem so in definition B, that you could have an extremely high income, low density population community that qualifies for that. Subsidies, and which doesn't seem like it's the intent.
no, it is not the intent. I haven't seen that happen. And this is existing. And I think it has been the definition for quite some time. So I think there was a lot of thought given to that. And I think it's involved going through these calculations, but I think it works to meet the intent.
I think also we've got water districts. And this is where your drinking water projects are too. There's many water districts out there that are considered a municipality. So if you got a small municipality and you got a small municipality next door and another one, they could create a water district. Then the water district would qualify for this.
A lot of our systems are fire districts. formed for those
Maybe
purposes.
Fire district.
Fire districts are- And yeah, fire districts, and they are municipalities by state
So
law.
that's where this language, because we did this in this committee back, I think it was in the late nineties. We did this because the feds allowed us to start putting an income, some graduation in terms of the drinking water revolving loan fund. I think it was in the late nineties,
That's right.
did that.
Drinking water, right?
Some of us have lived this.
It's very helpful. So I apologize, there's a lot of text here, but this is what the language that is proposed. So an issue that we have encountered working with some of our borrowers, particularly the manufactured housing community. We've worked with the manufactured housing subcommittee of the Affordable Housing Coalition. Over time, they've provided a lot of feedback on our intended use plans. And they've identified that sector, I'm kind of jumping to D here. The manufactured housing community has very high infrastructure needs. A lot of these communities are older and their infrastructure needs upgrade. For those, and they tend to be very small communities in terms of our borrowers. For them to qualify as a disadvantaged community, if they are a manufactured housing community, mobile home park within a community that has a higher income, it's hard for them to show that they are lower income unless they do an income survey. Income surveys, they have to hire a consultant to do that. The results, if they don't get significant participation, that may affect whether or not they're able to demonstrate that they meet the requirement. And I believe it is felt as like one more impediment for these communities to get through the overall process, permitting, design, funding, et cetera. And so they have asked us to try to find ways to streamline it so they can address the significant infrastructure needs in these communities. So D is intended to, yes, those other requirements are still at play for other communities, below state median household income, et cetera. This would allow certain resident-owned manufactured housing communities that have to be nonprofit and resident-owned and registered with the Department of Commerce and Community Development. They would essentially automatically qualify as disadvantaged community. We have realized that we still might need to propose some additional changes to the statute in order to fully implement that, because first test is like, yes, we're disadvantaged, but then as we're still requiring median household income information from them as we go through the steps of extending term, lowering interest, awarding subsidy. So if okay with you, we might seek to reach out to Ledge Council to work on some potential modifications, but the intent will be the same, to just, again, relieve this community these communities from having to jump through several layers of hoops that really, I think, based on the preponderance of evidence, these are very high need communities that are very important source of housing to make life easier for them and the consultants who represent them.
So our Ledge Council is in the room. So if you could submit some of that language on gray corner there.
Although we'll do.
So could you explain what a manufactured housing community is? Is it manufactured homes that are built off-site and then delivered in two sections and put together? Is it mobile homes? What is the definition of manufactured housing?
I believe it's mobile homes. And I suspect there's a definition within 10 BSA, it's 6254. And they have to be registered as such, sorry to know.
Yeah, it has to be registered and reside in a nonprofit and have to be resident owned. And
Yes.
mobile home parks are registered. So would it be in a mobile home park?
I believe they're synonymous. I think that, and I'm not an expert here, I think there was some awareness that mobile home park was a misnomer and that these homes really aren't mobile. They may have been brought in on wheels, but you can't go moving them around. And I think it's essentially the same communities.
So is this connected at all with the governor's executive order?
I think it's generally, yes, definitely in keeping with promoting affordable housing and increasing.
But was this part of his executive order?
I don't know.
That's all.
I don't think so.
I don't
I
believe
don't
it was
think
part
so.
of the executive order. This policy proposal has been vetted up to the governor's office. Supported.
So we should work with our respective committees that deal with housing. Make sure this is in tangent with whatever direction they're working in. And maybe even environmental community as well. What does C?
So C is a little broader. If we have C, we could do D. So C basically says, right now, the definition of disadvantaged community is set in statute. On the clean water side, it's not. There's, and in both cases, we have both state and federal guidelines as to how we define these communities. But on the clean water side, and the analogous term is affordability criteria. And we have the ability to amend those affordability criteria in the intended use plan. So if we're getting feedback or we've identified a gap in our overall approach, we could modify those criteria, and the intended use plan goes out for public comment. It's reviewed by EPA. And that approach has worked. We haven't modified it in the last 5 years, except to add categorically manufactured housing communities on the clean water side. They categorically meet the definition of affordability criteria or called disadvantaged community. Again, that's on the clean water side. So we were seeking to be able to do the same thing on the drinking water side. And if over time we are, again, receiving input to suggest that modifying those criteria to better meet the intent of providing assistance to disadvantaged communities, we could modify those criteria in the intended use plan. So if C were, if D was not changed and C were, then we could make that change or propose that change in the next intended use plan. We added D to get there quicker and to provide certainty to that community in response to their, the comments we've received from them over time.
So the intended use plan right now for drinking water revolving loan fund, right?
Sorry.
The intended use plan that you have right now for the drinking water revolving loan fund, you have an intended use plan, right?
Yes.
It does not include house consideration for household income, user rates, socioeconomic indicators that determine the priority? Or does it?
Those factors can influence the scoring for projects, but it doesn't grant those projects, again, longer term, lower interest, or loan principal forgiveness. The intended use plans reference this definition, but we can't modify the existing definition of disadvantaged community in the intended use plan. It's set in statute. And it's a very workable definition. It's just not flexible.
So this C allows some flexibility in how you define disadvantaged municipality in the intended use plan.
Yes. Again, there are also federal side boards. I don't have the exact quote, but very similar to indicators here, user rate, socioeconomic, household income. Like states don't have the ability to define disadvantaged community however they want. And again, the intended use plans are reviewed by US EPA each year.
Whoever's reporting this has to pay attention because it's not me. Putting that out.
Got it.
So anyone that has questions,
I think it was
time
last-
to ask.
We're asking about the executive order. What did you mean? What did you want to correlate between the executive order and what we're talking about here with mobile
D,
homes?
D,
D.
was any of
Mobile
this connected to what was asked in the executive order back in the fall for housing?
Well.
And
this
do
is-
we have to
Emily
keep
clarified it was
along?
not, I was speaking to being in keeping with, but yes, it's not.
Just says it's just fee relief for mobile homes and stuff like that. There was not priority for mobile home priority processing.
But this is where we need, because general and housing is looking at that they've been working
Yeah,
on the executive order, so we've got to track. Are people clear on this language?
I mean, yes, but not necessarily the intent or how far it can go. I mean, and I don't know if this is the right forum for that or not, you know. Well, for instance, you say C is broader than D, it is. D speaks specifically about manufactured housing communities. What else could C scoop up that is not that? And I don't know if this is the right place to ask that, you know.
What are we gonna do, like tiny home communities or, you know, or homeless pods?
They wouldn't be a eligible borrower in all likelihood, but unless you're referring to the community that houses.
Right.
Yeah. I think, at least in the case of the manufactured housing communities, there's a lot of documented need in terms of the insufficiency of the infrastructure and the costs that they're facing.
Yeah.
And another factor could be the, predominance of pollutant. A lot of communities are dealing with emerging contaminants. Currently, we've had some good grant funding from US EPA that are required to offer as 100% forgivable loans. This is the last year of that funding. So I think some communities may be facing a long-term burden that isn't necessarily reflected in their income and in their user rates. I don't really have, sitting here, I don't have any particular change or community in mind. It was just to have that flexibility. Again, we do have that flexibility on the clean water side, and we've been, I think, very conservative in terms of how we've used it.
Yes.
Yep.
Oversimplified, because that's the way I have to think. This is help to those that need it. What's driving this change?
What's driving it?
Yeah, I mean, is there particular areas that we feel like can't make it happen and this is gonna help them out, or why it's an incremental change helping communities out? I get that, but nobody's got enough money. Why is the governor suggesting this is where we want to put more money?
I think it's an important housing sector with high infrastructure needs. They don't isn't necessarily the majority of the state's population that's affected, but it's a significant part. And there's no simple solution to addressing infrastructure, like addressing housing. So this is a very simple and limited change, at least certainly D. We've heard repeatedly from, projects that are trying to go through our process that this would make their lives easier, and not just easier, and they face, pulling together the funding to update the manufactured housing community is a real challenge. They've got to seek funding from multiple parties. It's a lot of engineering, a lot of planning, a lot of design, construction, coordination of construction or other non-water related infrastructure needs. So we could ease that path a little bit. That's why.
Yeah, I'm not against it. I just wonder why in this tweak. I mean, I know we all need more affordable housing, but I mean, is this, I guess, yeah, you answered.
Okay, thank you.
It's where he thinks he.
So let's go down to section 9, because I know Fish and Wildlife is due in and we're running late. And then we have Hillary scheduled to walk us through the draft for the parole board.
All right, so this is also related to housing. It's a different sections, statute and rule. So section 9 of the bill covers 10 VSA 1628. And this covers chapter 2 of the environmental protection rules. Those are the rules that our overall program uses to assess the priority of projects. Statute describes what has to be in the rule. There's a rule that has those things. And there's also a component of the rule that talks about what a municipality needs to demonstrate if they want to seek our funding to extend wastewater service to a portion of the municipality that does not have it, and where that is outside of a designated center. So our current rule was adopted in 2017. Certainly with an eye towards preventing scattered development or sprawl, whatever you want to call it. And so the current requirement is if a municipality wants new wastewater treatment, either a new treatment plant or service outside a designated center, that demonstrate that there are no reasonable alternatives, that there's rules in place, zoning, to prevent scattered development, and that there's a significant health problem that'll be most cost effectively addressed by this new wastewater service. So first, like, is there a problem that's getting fixed? If so, is this the only reasonable alternative? And do you have the zoning controls, et cetera, to prevent scattered development? This proposal, so that is perceived as a burden to extending sewer service in areas that might accommodate additional housing. To have to go through those steps of the process. So the proposal here would allow where a municipal sewer extension or new treatment plant or new service line, if that is being done to accommodate new housing or to reserve capacity for new housing, then the current requirements would be deemed to have been met. So instead of having to demonstrate to us that, again, there's a problem, there's no other alternative, and there's zoning to prevent scattered development, it wouldn't have to do those things. If the project was being done to accommodate additional housing, it wouldn't have to do those things.
That one we're gonna have to work with the environment and with the environment committee, because you're notwithstanding. You're doing a big notwithstanding. And you're also notwithstanding the rule. On that one, we're gonna need to do a little bit of work. John?
Yeah, what's the definition of scattered development? I don't know.
You gotta go back into Title 10.
Okay.
This is the
Sorry.
environmental Title 10.
Yes.
The previous language is in Title 24, which deals with municipal law. Title 10 deals with environmental law. So you have to look at which title you're in. Okay, so it's 10 BSA, that's environmental.
Yep.
You won't have to really reach out to our colleagues.
Okay.
Get some help on this. This one is more complicated, I think, than the first language.
Yeah, I would agree.
There's implications, particularly when you say we're notwithstanding. That one's a- Anything else? And we'll look towards John to help us too on this.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I do think I have one more question, Chair. It's just the final clause in the proposal or that reserve wastewater capacity for new housing. Can you restate or elucidate or?
Sure. A wastewater treatment system can be expanded and designed that to not necessarily accommodate immediate housing development.
Yep.
But the community can reserve capacity, and capacity can be measured in, hydraulic capacity, like how many gallons per day, but also wastewater treatment plants have permit limits regarding biological oxygen demand, phosphorus, et cetera. And they can say, we're going to reserve some of that capacity in the treatment plant only for housing.
Thanks.
This has been a heavy lift. I know some of it's been easy to follow and some of it is not. So thank you for hanging in, everyone. We will be spending committee time working on this.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We do have Fish and Wildlife out there.
Yeah.
In the hallway, let them in. If you need a break, take a personal break, but don't do it all at once. So can someone let Fish and Wildlife in?
It's pretty deep. That they appropriations was what is asked. So in this case, what problem are you trying to solve here?
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah.
If I didn't have to explain it as that.
You go out. Yeah.
I think we can get that in the mix in our document though, right? Yeah, totally.
We get full money anyway.
I agree with
So
you.
what are we going to do?
I know we're running late. Thank you. I appreciate you having patience. We are still on section 9. And we're doing, if I get focused here, lines 78. And also we did do the dams.
Yes.
And we'll start with line 78, which is your major maintenance and infrastructure.
Great. I guess for the record, my name is Andrea Shortsleeve. I'm the Chief of Operations for the Department of Fish and Wildlife. It's nice to see you all again. With me today, I brought Dylan Sickles, who is our Fish Culture Program Manager, Elizabeth Stratton, who is our Director of Finance and Administration, and then Eric Palmer, who is the Director of our Fish Program, or Fish Division, excuse me. So I think we sent over a spreadsheet that outlines some of the things, so I'm happy to take any questions you have.
We just looked at the spreadsheet.
Okay,
We haven't looked at it before.
great. And I should also mention, we just got off the phone with Adam Miller in the hallway, and he says hello.
So there's only a few of us left. So there are no recommended changes
Correct.
for this, but there's 1.1 million, and that's why 26, and then 1 million and 27. So we just need an update on where the money flow has been, and this is the sheet, if you could go over it for us.
Sure. Well, we can start at the top with our infrastructure projects related to our conservation camps, both at Buck Lake and Kehoe down in Castleton. All of the projects are going to be done before the camp season begins, which is in June. And so we're just waiting for the weather conditions and being able to start those construction projects.
All of those will be done, the Buck and the Kehoe,
Correct. Yep.
done by summer,
Done by summer.
26.
Yep. I have 900 Vermont youths attending those camps, so we need to make sure that all those are done in time. And then moving down to the residents and offices, majority of those are for our fish hatchery residences. They're just related to regular upkeep of those buildings. We have a number of transitions happening with the tenants moving in and out. And so a couple of the projects are going to be delayed until during the summer, just related to those moves.
So the 2 Bennington ones are right at the fish hatchery, correct?
Correct. Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. And similar with the Kehoe residents, that's at our Green Mountain Camp, or Green Mountain Conservation Camp in Castleton, like I mentioned before. And the projects at the Sandbar WMA, we were replacing the roof. The contract is in process. We're going to be using a standing seam roof there, and should be a nice durable project. Am I looking at an old one? Thanks.
Yeah, we went
Sorry, no.
fish culture.
Oh, my mistake. Yeah. So I'll actually pass that to Dylan, since he is the expert in the room talking about.
Yep, well, thank you, Andrea. Dylan Sickles, our fish culture operations manager. So, yes, we've got a whole bunch of projects in 5 different facilities going across the programs. We usually ask for that. We're excited to have most of those projects being able to be done before. So, our Ball Hill facility has some electrical and recirculation equipment being done there for our tie-in with our walleye programs and some of the other species we raise there and Salmonids. Bennington facility, there's a listing of a head box drain with a large number there. We're actually having a project done there for our ponds that we've done this summer. We got it out to bid a couple of times. We actually, as a reference point, we put it out to bid last year and the price came in significantly over what we had available. We put it back out this spring and we actually got a price below what we had available. So we're able to hire a partner that works for the project as well. So we're excited to get that work going. So it's been a significant savings, almost $500,000 difference in price that we saw there on that project.
I want it noted Bennington saved some money for the state.
You're banking that, right?
Sure. God, Mary.
I have to run on
We're
fire.
waiting for the butt.
Our Bennington facility, our Ed Weed facility, and our Bald Hill facility also turnover in our management staff there. We had 3 managers over 30 years apiece retire, so we lost a lot of institutional knowledge. We've gained some stuff there. Some of the other staff we have there, we've learned from them. So a lot of these projects are going on where things are put in place that we're continuing with the staff we have there going forward. Our Bennington facility has some tree removal they're working on, filter roof as well. We're looking at a well there we're getting taken care of too that's out for bid and be done here this summer as well. As our expectation. Our Ed Weed facility has several projects involving electrical work, a pole barn that we built, staff on site. We have one of the most impressive engineers in our program out there who can actually build and take care of most of those projects internally with our staff there by this individual leading the projects. We've saved hundreds, if not thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars at that facility by having our staff there take care of those projects internally. He's an excellent welder, fabricator, so we've got lots of projects going on there on site that we take care of by the internal staff. The pole barn is one of those. We ran into a time frame this year. We're going to have walleye coming in soon, as well as our salmonas that came in this fall. They got that pole barn built within the time frame, within some other internal issues we had going on, some BT buys and some other things that came up, but we got it done. So it's in the process. It was up that way. You can see the building being built as we speak, so we're pretty excited about that. We have our wastewater plant being taken care of there and some flooring as well. Roxbury, we had some historical work done on our carriage barn there last year, so it's finishing up there as well. The building was actually moved off its premises. Foundation was redone and put back on, so it was a big project taken care of. Building or drilling a well there as well to help our water infrastructure needs there. And a well line as well. Salisbury has some work with the study we're working on. It's a bigger picture that we have with our process that was submitted last December for our hatchery review and all. So we're working on a feasibility study there with that, as well as the larger study. Back to our well house repair and lighthouse, we were working on those and alarm system as well that we're trying to take care of there at the facility. And our heavy equipment, we've got a few items we're looking to purchase involving a trailer and some other pieces we had to get there for potentially a UTV, as they call it. I'm trying to say the universal vehicle and all for that. So I'm not saying it right, but the gator kind of thing ourselves for that. So a couple of projects we're working on for the properties there. So just a heads up on those.
Where are we with the Salisbury?
Sure. Which part of it? Our Salisbury project, there's multiple pieces there, and I'll talk to the study we're doing overall. We've actually enlarged that. We have a hired consultant on board who came to all 5 facilities this past spring to review our fish hatchery program as a whole. McMillan Incorporated out of Idaho is here. We're working with them right now on a report that we hope to have done by June 30th for review of all 5 of our fish culture facilities across the board. That's a bigger study we're working on, but the process there with Salisbury and the effluent and wastewater processes, we are talking directly with DEC. We're having a lot more meetings with that. Eric is here as well and probably speak to some of that too, but that's something we're working on with them directly on this to make sure we're moving forward with that facility going into the future there as well. So
When does the permit expire for
the
that?
current permit expires as of December 31st of 2027.
27. Because for the committee, there was a proposal to close down Salisbury. We put in a study to really look at what would it take to keep Salisbury open, but also what would it take to upgrade our other hatcheries to incorporate what is currently being done at Salisbury. When are you anticipating that report being done?
The large report from the consultant we've hired for this is supposed to be by June 30th of this year. So we'll have that. They're working on it as we speak for the bigger study. It should show how the hatcheries work across the board. So
Thanks a lot, Sean.
So one of the questions I had walking in, which I think you're kind of covering, is concerns I keep hearing about maybe the potential of any hatcheries closing. So we'll leave that there for now. So you guys have been answering. But the other question I keep hearing over the last 3-4 weeks is whether or not the money has been distributed to the or like the walleye.
Lake Champlain Watershed.
Yeah.
We're gonna
they
get
have-
there.
We are.
Yes.
I'm in advance. I jumped.
You were in advance.
Jumped the
Yes.
shark, not the walleyes.
Yeah. I get
Speak
there.
to that now, or you want to go later? So,
So later.
okay, that's fine.
And then just, you had mentioned that you lost at Bald Hill, you lost three of your senior
Actually, it
people.
was 3 different hatcheries. We lost our 3 managers, one at Bennington, one at Bald Hill, one at Ed Weed.
And you've not replaced these guys.
We've replaced 2 we replaced all 3.
Oh, you did?
Yes, yes. We
Okay.
had 2 staff, one at Ed Weed and one at Bald Hill, who were at the assistant level, ready to move up. So they moved in.
So they were just like in line to take that position.
Yep, so we were able to move forward with those. We do have an open position at Bald Hill. We hope to fill at some point, but it's the position that the assistant had previously. At our Bennington facility, we did bring an individual in from outside. We stole an individual that was a very good candidate from Virginia. So we hired him on board. So he we moved up. The position at Ed Weed for the assistant that was there, we were also able to fill that one. We brought an individual in, stole him again from Georgia. So we've got some
Wow,
quality staff coming out.
outside the state.
I will speak, if I could, just for a second. We actually have a fish culture school going on right now at Ed Weed. That's been going on all this week, goes on again 2 weeks from now, and again in the middle of March. We brought in our 6 or 7 people that are new on our team across the board for the last 2 or 3 years. That we take them up and make sure they're skilled at the skills we need to do for our hatcheries and know all about hatchery management techniques. And our staff there and a program within the Vermont staff actually teach that course. And we have space that we've been able to bring in other states. So we've had approximately 7 or 8 other states here this week.
Wonderful.
Maine, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Connecticut, all the way down to Delaware, New York as well, Pennsylvania. Staff from all their teams are here this week to learn from our team about how to raise fish the best way within their program so they can train their staff up to be best fish cultures out there as well.
So it's great.
So we've got a lot of work going on internally to bring our staff up to par.
Right, thanks for sharing.
Do those other states pay for that?
We offer it free of charge to them. Where we have the knowledge, we actually took it even virtual this year. So we have staff coming across from about 30 or 40 different people who are on board at different times, learning about fish culture in our programs as well. So we're sort of a leader in that status as well across the country.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Anything else on the fish hatcheries for that?
No.
Okay.
Great. Okay, so now we'll jump to WMA improvements. The majority of our capital ask for WMAs goes into infrastructure projects statewide. We've just wrapped up some really big projects, including a lot of road work at Bill Sladek following the floods.
Which you talked about last session with us, right?
I believe so, yes, yeah.
That with us.
Yeah. And then we also completed a workshop at the Dead Creek WMA down in Addison, which was a project that took quite a while to get done, but it is done and it looks great. And so this year we'll be focusing on road work at the West Mountain WMA, and then also focusing on our dams, which I know Tim came in and talked to you, I think, last week about. So all of our capital requests for our WMAs are matched with federal dollars, our Pittman Robinson dollars. And so we're using the capital money to leverage about 3 times more money from the feds to accomplish these projects.
It's basically a 3-to-1 match.
Correct. Yeah. So it's great. The Weyerhaeuser line, that is part of an agency-wide requirement to pay Weyerhaeuser to keep roads open for access in those properties. And so this is just our portion, and it's just for annual road upkeep and access. And I do want to flag that I just spoke with John Austin, who's our wildlife director, and he said that contract with Weyerhaeuser is being renegotiated right now. They will be asking for more money just to kind of keep up with the increase in costs. And so next year when we come for our capital bill, we will also be asking for some more money to do that work. So now we can talk about the sandbar WMA roof replacements. They'll be on 3 buildings. Bids received, contracts are in process, and these roofs need to be replaced in April due to federally endangered bats. So trying to make sure that we meet the timing for that, and we plan to. So. And then the statewide dam repairs and maintenance, skip the Sladek WMA FEMA match. I don't have much to say. It's earmarked, or it's waiting for the invoices of projects are due. Sorry. So just waiting for invoices from FEMA. And then the line for the statewide dam repairs and maintenance, that'll be used at Fairfield Swamp in Fairfield. That dam in particular is fairly expensive. We need to be putting some money into it to maintain right now so it doesn't fail. But we're also hired engineers to redesign the dam for some alternative designs, and paying engineers is quite expensive. Okay. Just wanted to flag that. What was this computer? It's okay, I think. And then moving down to our shooting range improvements, that project is currently in process right now. And
You got the old one?
Man, just wandering all over. Just boats? Okay, perfect.
Fishing vessel and warden patrol. boat.
Yeah.
That's it.
Okay, great. Well, the electro fishing vessel, we're actively working with BGS. We've gotten 3 bids, and our fish biologist, Sean Good, is working with OWACA to get the design and purchase the boat that he is looking for. And then for the warden patrol boat, Major Reed is getting revised quotes from BGS. So she reached out and got a bunch of quotes in order to make an accurate ask for the capital bill. And we are getting 50-50 from our recreational boating safety grant from the Department of Public Safety and the Coast Guard. And so as far as we know, all the funds are secure, and that'll be happening.
So these dollars, the 2.55, come out of fiscal year 24 and 25. Because it doesn't track with what we have right now with 26 and 27. And I'm seeing in the box at the bottom, capital appropriation balances. You've got the
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there should be.
qualifying numbers, which I'm assuming is when it says 2401 at the end. And 2501, is that your fiscal year?
Yes, it is. It was allocated in 24 for 25 and then allocated in 25.
So it's a calendar year.
It's when it was, yeah, when we made the decision, yeah.
It still doesn't track.
No, it's a different number, yeah.
No, but it does, well, it's close. But what we put in FY 26, which we did in calendar year 25, was 1,105,000, and here you're 400,000 short. So where it says 1.104. So is that the FY 26 dollars?
No, I'm sorry for the confusion. These are the balances in Vision, January 31st. So that's remaining balances, not appropriated.
But it tracks with your project balances that then you intend to get all of those out pretty much by September 30th of this year. So what fiscal year are you working with these appropriations? There's 2.5 plus million in projects. Do you anticipate having done by this date? Do you anticipate having those pretty much done and expended by the bulk of them by September 30th of this year? And then you've got some that are going to go beyond that of 152,000. So the 2.55 was.
But the 2401 line is what's left of the fiscal 25 funds. And the 2501 line is what the balance of the fiscal 26 funds.
And just so you're aware, Madam Chair, on Scott's out of January 28th. I've got the FY, I'm gonna call it the 24, what was just referenced as a FY 25 at not 1446, but 1264,844. So, I mean, it's a fluid. It just depends on what's been input into vision and what hasn't been. So there's, I would imagine, invoices here that are being cleared
Right.
as we speak.
That's why it's 400,000
Yeah.
less, right? I mean, that one seems to, so between the FY 25 and FY 26 appropriations, you're gonna be expending all of that, the bulk of it, by September of this year. I have 152,000 that's gonna go beyond for that. So what are you anticipating with an additional million plus in FY 27? Because that's what you're due in FY 27.
Oh, that's a good question.
The list that's developed.
Okay.
I've got a bunch of happy price. I don't have it in front of me. So I just bring up.
So that would be good. That would be good to have.
Yeah.
For that.
Okay.
And then I'm gonna lead in a little bit to the walleyes because we have appropriated 25,000 last year to the department for walleyes, and that was discussed in the conference committee. That those dollars will now be part of the Fish and Wildlife budget. So is that an anticipation of doing that within $1,029,000 in FY 27? Because that was our intent.
If I speak to that, then I would suggest we'll find a 25,000 in the money that we've asked for within our hatchery program for that.
Because that was the plan. It would come through, it would be incorporated within your budget, be a separate line item in the spreadsheet. Sure.
And just to anticipate, nothing in here about funding fishing derbies.
That's for Mayor.
No, that typically shows up in the other side of the budget.
It does,
Yeah.
I
doesn't
was just going to
And
say,
it is not,
we pushed it out there, I think.
yeah, and that happens without us being involved. It's pass-through money that we do not advocate for.
Heard.
Can I repeat the question?
It was just answered. It's in the budget.
No, but they haven't received, according to the walleye.
Oh,
They haven't received the money.
The money.
We actually, Elizabeth, the contract was fulfilled as of last week, right? So it's signed and all these, so they should be receiving that money anytime. That's been executed, so.
Because it was appropriated for you folks for FY 26. But going forward, it's to be included in your budgets because you're the ones who are really doing the work once the Walleye Association does their ponds, but then they also help with the tanks. But it's really you folks that manage this once
Yes.
it gets there. So that's the shift that we made last year.
Yeah. We'll bring Eric with our historic perspective.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I know that Eric Palmer, Chief of Fisheries, Vermont Fish and Wildlife. I know that the committee had a number of questions last year about, why does it show up from the Senate and why doesn't Fish and Wildlife just ask for it directly? And I was around for that history, and back in the late 90s and early 2000s, we had kind of a contentious relationship with the LCWA. They felt like we weren't doing the right things, and some of our meetings were a little bit infectious. And frankly, we didn't even know that they were asking for capital money.
They kind of went around you.
They went around us and they went to somebody who had a very sympathetic ear, which was Senator Dick Massa.
Awesome, yes.
And he felt that they were doing good things for Lake Champlain, which he cared a lot about. And so that's why the money started showing up from the Senate side, in Senate institutions, instead of coming. the way they
Originally,
have.
it started in the House. Way back before that.
Okay. Because when we were asked to comment, we were pulled into Senate institutions.
Okay.
And we said, this is not our request. It's not the governor's request. We can't speak to that, but we can say, we're getting along quite well with the LCWA. That relationship has proved to the point where they started spending some of that money they were receiving to send our staff to trainings when our budgets were tight. We said, we can't afford that. We will pay. And so the money started to go from us through the LCWA and then come back to us. And then as the ponds proved to be less effective in rearing fish inside our hatcheries, inside the Baldville hatchery and the Ed Weed hatchery, they started saying, we're not going to spend our money on our ponds anymore. We want to buy tanks for the department to raise walleye. And so now it's at the point where, yeah, that money is really coming full circle back to our department, and it really makes sense for us to be stepping up and making the request. But that's.
We own the tanks now. They're state tanks. Are
They buy them and then they give them to us. And so we've never had like any sort of MOA with them as to who owns them, but once they're installed in our facility, we said these are now considered Fish and Wildlife property. But they're bought not just with the capital bill money that comes to the LCWA, but some of the funds that they raised through their banquet and other things. They were putting up 100% of the money to buy those tanks. But they are housed in our hatcheries and operated by our staff.
Now that relationship is a much better working relationship.
Yeah.
The tanks are permanently installed in our hatcheries, so it needs to come through the Fish and
We
Wildlife.
agree
Department.
completely. Just explaining kind of the history of why it didn't start out that way.
That was good, thank you.
His choice, Myers.
My bad.
So we should get a list of what you're anticipating for the FY 27 on 1,029,000. Just send it to Tate would be great. If we have questions, we can ask you folks to come back in.
Just a broad question. We've been hearing a lot of dam testimony this session here.
Testimony, yeah.
I just, I asked it last time folks were in, but I don't think I totally understand the logic in the departments and under A&R, each having different dams, right? Because at the end of the day, as it was said, you're biologists, you're not like, dam mechanics there. So, it feels like it creates an unnecessary level of bureaucracy to have to work with DEC rather than just shift them all into DEC, let them run them, Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I would probably entertain what Eric thought. Like, you've been around for a lot longer and knowing the history of how we've acquired dams on our WMAs and our fish pond sites and such. And maybe you can speak to that.
Yeah, our department used to be very much in favor of owning dams, building dams, maintaining dams to provide fishing opportunities. In fact, we own a bunch of land that's labeled as pond sites, and there's no pond there because at some point we were like, this isn't such a good idea anymore. A couple of our dams are high hazard dams. They've got liability and they cost a lot of money to maintain. And I think our department is the largest dam owner in the state. Not sure the exact number. I think we have 27.
Oh, it's 70.
70?
Yeah, we have
Okay.
a lot.
We just got the registration fee for, I think, 27, so maybe a little bit smaller.
Yeah.
If DEC was willing to take them, that
Draft up a short form bill.
and honestly, DEC has really stepped up and taken responsibility for doing the survey, doing the maintenance, doing, asking for the capital funds and looking at all of the state dams kind of equally. And we've really benefited from their leadership on that. So they've really stepped up. But still, the onus is on us to make sure that our dams are safe and that we've got emergency action plans. And we also have to frankly work with a lot of lake associations who may want us to manage dams or water levels differently than we do. So they're a liability. They're a challenge. We acquired them to create fishing opportunities.
Yep. Thanks very much.
I was just gonna say, like, you think about that, there's no real damn good solution. Because you're gonna want, you have the issue of ownership, and stuff, but if you put them all in DC, for example, then they're like, hey, we want to put a dam in this location for fishing or wildlife opportunities, and they're like, well, we're looking at it from an engineering position, and so no matter who owns them, there's gonna be a conflict, and that's kind of a crappy situation, hard situation, tough situation,
Complicated situation.
complicated situation,
Complicated.
challenging.
Yeah.
You made me think of it. It's like, there's no right answer.
Well, we may be thinking about some of that when we do markup, or we may not. We'll see. Anything else? So get back to us with your listing of how you intend to spend that 1 million plus.
Just a shout out if I could for a second. Again, fish culture, we're getting ready to do stocking season again, and Representative Greer, I know that I'm here today, yeah, you want to do some stocking with us, so. Put the word out again that we're happy to bring folks out and show them what we do, and by all means, our hatcheries are always open. 7 days a week, or they're between probably 8 to 3, somewhere in that range, but if you guys are out and about, want to see our facility, see the funds being used, displays and all, please come. We really support that. We want you guys there, so come on and
So
visit our
what
facility.
are you going to?
Oh, we'll be at Bennington. Folks are there all the time, so we'll be stocking. We start. Yeah. Say we're
Start. When do you?
stocking usually is in full motion by mid-April, late April through early June.
Can you keep me updated?
Yes.
So that I-
Yep. Abigail, our.
Yeah, we'll make sure you hear about it.
Make sure you guys hear about those. Thank you.
It might be worth, sometime in April, we have some low times where we're looking for, there might be a good field trip for the committee if it's nearby.
Right for you.
It's nearby.
If anybody wants to come, Fairfield has a beautiful swamp
Yeah.
and a big presidential building.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you for having the patience.
Thank you.
Oh, you're good. You're good.
Should jump at you.
Good.
Going to the fish hatcheries and sites.
Here.
So
Not crazy. It's been a busy day.
we used to have.
And we do have a bill on the floor. So, yes.
Oh, yeah, sure. Indeed.
Still.
And one on the notice calendar.
One on
Hey.
notice.
You need to calm down.
What do you?
I gotta talk
It's
to,
evidencing I read it.
I gotta talk to you about it. I haven't.
Okay.
Okay, pull out your bill of 559, come on up. Drafts. One. Got more work that I gotta do.
Good job. Thank you.
Sounds.
Every time you returned.
Surprise.
Okay, Hillary. Okay. Welcome. So we have a new draft on HR 9, draft 1.1. So Hillary, bring us through this.
Good afternoon. For the record, Hillary Cheddar Ames for Office of Legislative Counsel. I'll go ahead and share my screen. So you can see draft language. All right, we have it up here. So on Tuesday, we talked about making 5 key changes that are reflected in this strikeout amendment to H559. The first key change was that the bill previously referred to the parole board director providing training. And in each of those places where the bill refers to the parole board director providing training, the committee wanted to add that the chair of the parole board also had a role in training. Second key change was,
Hillary.
yes,
So for folks who have the paper copy, the yellow does not show in the highlight, okay? So what Hillary has done, whatever it's yellow and highlights is new language from the bill. From the bill. You have to have the bill in front of you, the original bill.
next time I'll give Tate a heads up when it's a color printout.
It doesn't print, or does it?
Could be like, right.
Yeah, but just,
We'll work on,
Yeah.
Tate and I will work on making sure there are highlighted options going forward. We can both make that happen. So I'll do just the quick overview of the 5 changes, and then as the chair said, I'll walk through to show you, and you can see in yellow here, any change in language from the bill version. So that first key change was referring to the chair of the parole board in addition to the parole board director in terms of training. The second was removing one area where DOC was given a role in training, referring to making determinations of parole, which the committee heard was something that the parole board did based on a separate evidence-based tool. The third was deciding not to add term limits. The fourth was adding consultation with the parole board director and chair by the governor before appointing a parole board member. And the fifth was adding that.
We gotta go up so folks can see it.
Yes,
I
great.
don't
We
know.
will turn to the specific language instead of the summary.
Oh, okay.
Just reminding the 5 things that when you see the language.
She's going, yeah, just.
Okay,
And then there was adding, as far as practicable, that the governor make appointments considering a balance of different knowledge and experience of the parole board. Okay, so those were the 5 key changes. We'll now turn to the language and see what that looks like in the.
Excuse me.
So in section 1, we have this section referring to the powers and responsibilities of the DOC commissioner. You'll see that we added that along with the parole board director, the chair of the parole board has a role in training, and that the DOC role in training does not include topics related to making determinations of parole. So in the ultimate bill, this will just read on topics related to criminogenic behavior. The committee will see a clean copy, but just so that you can see how this changed from the last bill draft that you saw, we've left it in with the strike through and just highlighted in yellow. Any questions about the changes in section 1? Perfect. Moving forward to section 2, and sorry that this cuts across pages. This section talks about the board and the board members, how they're appointed and their terms. You'll see that this section is now broken into a couple subdivisions, just so that there's not a huge long paragraph on the page covering a bunch of different topics. So the new A1 says that there will be a parole board of 7 members. This is where the bill had previously suggested adding a 2 consecutive term limit, as shown by the strike through. The amendment removes that suggested addition. Subdivision 2 now covers the governor's consultation and the kinds of things the governor has to consider in appointing members. So this first sentence in subdivision 2, this is page 2, lines 6 through 7, is that prior to appointing a member, the governor shall consult with the parole board director and the chair of the parole board. That's language loosely taken from 16 BSA 1693. There are a couple other ways to phrase this, so if the committee is interested in that, this is not the only way to describe the consultation requirement. At the end here, this adds that in addition to giving consideration as far as practicable to geographic representation of the state, the governor shall also give consideration as far as practicable to a balance of different knowledge and experience. So this sentence, the beginning of the sentence lists out the kinds of knowledge and experience that are relevant. And this requirement refers to a balance of those things that are mentioned.
so we spent quite a bit of time talking about this. So the way this is drafted, the governor needs to reach out to the parole board director and the chair. People still comfortable with this?
Yes.
And then the governor needs to take into consideration criminogenic behavior, that the person has some knowledge or experience in
Yep.
criminogenic behavior, mental health, treatment, substance use disorder, or serious criminal rehabilitation, which is carried through from the bill.
Mhm.
And we have also added at the end of that, and has a balance of different, and that the board, I would assume it's the board, has a balance of different knowledge and experience, or is that the member?
So the way this is phrased is that when the governor is appointing members, the governor will consider as much as practical members that represent a geographic representation of the state. and a balance of different knowledge and experience. So the way it's drafted, it refers to the whole board. But it is phrased as essentially each time the governor is appointing a member, the governor will be thinking about geographic representation of the state and a balance of different knowledge and experience.
Quick question. When you're aware that you're gonna lose a board member, are you usually the first person as the chair to know that?
Mary Jane, she's the director. So which one would know? Would it be the chair or the director? So Mary Jane, if you could identify yourself.
Mary Jane Ainsworth, Director of the Pool Board for the record. I think it varies. Sometimes the member will talk to the chair, sometimes the member will talk to the director. Sometimes they will talk to both of us. I know about a month or two prior to the end of terms, the chair will reach out to all the members who are expiring to see, just to talk to them about if they are looking for seeking reappointment or not. But there are times where the member will also have that initiate conversation.
Okay, so you typically know before the governor knows that there's gonna be a spot open, I guess is what I'm trying.
If somebody is planning to leave,
Yeah.
yes.
Typically, that would,
So if the person has a conversation with the chair, does the chair then let you know?
So then the chair does let me know, and then one of us will reach out to the governor's office to say there's anticipated vacancy, because the vacancy could be in the middle of someone's term, or it could be at the end of their term. We've had them both.
so this is basically making sure that you have a say in the selection as opposed to the governor just.
Because there have been times where we've had a vacancy and a member has been appointed and we did not know.
Right.
They were
So this is a real change from current law in terms of there needs to be some need to consult with the chair and executive director.
Yes, and as we talked about Tuesday, it required opportunity to provide input, but this does not change the governor's ultimate authority to appoint whomever the governor's
It's prior to appointing a member.
Mhm.
So what if the governor already has someone in mind, hasn't appointed them, plans on appointing them in a couple of days? He reaches out to the director and the chair, but already has someone in mind.
I think it's prior to formal appointment. I'm not sure how much statutory language could address that particular scenario. But it's certainly a possible one.
It happened. But our, person, the governor could have someone in mind. And the conversation we had was prior to even having someone in mind that maybe the parole board could weigh in with the governor in terms of what's needed. We sort of talked about that. This one kind of says prior to appointing a member to be the day before.
Yeah, so the examples we have in statute all kind of hinge on that formal appointment. So whether it's saying in making appointments to the board, the governor shall consult, or the governor shall appoint after consultation, or prior to appointing a member. Those are kind of the three versions from existing statutes that describe this kind of consultation requirement. I'm not sure any of those quite address that scenario, but I'm also not sure how much statutory language could kind of be crafted to require the governor to do something other than provide an opportunity. I think shall meaningfully consult, but at that point, it's a loose enough word that I'm not sure you're really structuring that consultation any different.
Picking up on what Mary Jane said, that when they are notified of a sitting member not seeking reappointment or resigning, it is the director or the chair that notifies the governor. I wonder at that point if there's a way the board to weigh in terms of what knowledge and experience they really need. They could do it at that point.
I think some of the discussion the committee had on Tuesday did talk about kind of more specific procedures around this consultation. If the committee were interested in spelling out some more detailed requirement, such as what the chair is describing, that, you know, upon notification of a vacancy, the parole board director and chair of the parole board shall provide the governor with
Could submit.
Yeah.
I do that now. I take it upon myself at times, like when our chair vacancy came up, I notified the governor's office of the chair vacancy. Also provided with like a list of duties of what the chair, I consulted with the chair and also provided like list of duties, list of information. I try to give that input now, but it doesn't mean a future director would.
Well, that's my question. You do that now. There's nothing that
Says I have
it says that you have to do that, but you do that. So I wonder, I'm just trying to play with this. If we did it both ways, that when the board knows there's going to be opening, that they would submit to the governor what Mary Jane currently submits. And then prior to an appointment of the member, the governor needs to consult back with the board. James and then Joe?
For me, I like the language as it is. And just from the government side of things, the way I always think of separations of power, I'd be very uncomfortable going much further in that with him or her. Right now it's a him for governor, but that's their role. And so I don't know that I would want to go further just because the way I look at government, but I do like the language we have, but we.
Joe?
But also you could be made aware of a vacancy that's going to exist in a year, and that could bridge different administration as well. So I would suggest just staying silent on that particular piece.
Which piece?
What do you mean?
As to what we do when there's a notice of vacancy. The notice of vacancy could vary very much by duration or how long you had before the vacancy actually exists.
Well, governor appoints and Senate approves. So you're gonna have a governor appoint in November and a different Senate approve January. It's an election year. I mean, those are all the variables. I mean, where are other folks on that? Should the board have a little bit more input prior to the governor coming up to appoint a member? Or wait until the governor has made the decision? Because prior to appointing a member, the governor may have already made a decision on the member.
I mean, I think the board can informally inform the chair and or the director.
Mary Jane says she does that now, but with a new director, she's just taken it upon herself to do it. When there's a new director, that may not happen. Because there's nothing indicating that the director does that.
Ultimately, the board communications can come from the chair anyway, right? You're not going to have individual board members communicating with the administration.
It could come from the chair or the executive director. And right now it's the executive director who gives that information, but there's nothing that is telling the executive director to do that. Current ones taken upon themselves to do that. So you get a new director, may not do it.
Did we say that both of them should tell the governor?
Well, that's
consult.
That's exactly what it says, is we were at almost an impasse Tuesday regarding the matter, because I prefer chair, but some people prefer director, so we just use both.
Right.
In this current version.
I'm saying a little something different. I'm listening to what Mary Jane stated. That when they know that there is an opening, they notify the governor. And at that point, Mary Jane submits information in terms of what they need for more balance and knowledge in the board. On the board. That's done now. Mary Jane has taken that upon herself to do that. There's nothing asking her to do that. What we are saying right there is that prior to appointing a member, the governor shall consult. That's what it says, shall consult. And what I'm putting on the table is the governor could already make up their mind who they want and consult the day before they appoint the person. So what real input does the board have in that?
Well, they don't. It's at the discretion of the governor. Just like any other gubernatorial appointment.
Regardless of what we put in there, it's still his appointment, right? Has to be approved by the Senate, but it's still his appointment.
Well, not these done, but
The only saving grace may be that it says shall,
Right.
because the two members, the executive director and the chair of the parole, could kind of, say we need to talk further with this, and I would hope that a governor would look to listen, even if they had kind of in their own mindset already had someone picked, that they would listen to, knowing what is needed on that rule. But that's just my humble opinion.
Fine.
Instead of saying prior to appointing a member, can we say upon notification of a vacancy?
So it'd be upon notification of the vacancy, the governor shall consult.
So it doesn't say may, it says shall.
Yeah. Huh?
Yeah, I actually like that. I might be cynical, but at the end of the day, the governor's gonna do what the governor's gonna do, right? Like, I kind of think to some extent, the best you can do is force the conversation. And the governor, whoever that is gonna consider it a meaningful partnership or not, where it's a back and forth. And if they want to rubber stamp someone, it'll be the illusion of input, right? And they'll do it anyways. But I think if you do that, at least it gives a bit of leeway.
I have no problem.
Yeah, I think that's good. Well done, Joe.
We good with that, folks?
Here to help.
I mean, I.
Yeah.
Second,
Okay.
I was trying to
Sounds
say,
good.
it
Upon
is,
notification.
but yes.
Excellent. Okay. So the next amendment will reflect upon notification of a vacancy, the governor shall consult with the parole board director and the chair of the parole board.
Does that work?
Works.
Okay.
I was looking at the language in the director clause down in section 3 to see how that consultation worked too, because there's consultation there before the governor's appointment as well.
The last two changes in the bill are part of that kind of first key change that in two other places where the bill talks about trainings provided by the parole board director, this amendment adds in collaboration with the chair of the parole board. So this is page 3, lines 12 through 13. Says that at least annually, each member of the parole board shall attend trainings designated by the parole board director in collaboration with the chair of the parole board. So language added in the amendment. And similarly, on page 4, lines 8 through 9, when it's talking about the director providing training to the board in collaboration with the DOC commissioner and the chair of the parole. That's that there. Any other questions about the amendment?
So this is all great, Hillary, but so nothing in this bill at the moment still addresses a couple of the big questions. How do we get them a separate line item? And I think the attorney general conflict is very real and very big. And something we should remedy immediately. So
Yeah.
I'm just wondering where we would want to go from here as far as
Well,
those two issues.
There's also, should it be under the secretary of the Agency of Human Services and not DOC?
Yeah, so since those issues were still being considered by the committee, they're not reflected in this amendment, but I understand there might be some other witnesses here today that might further the committee's discussion.
We tried to get Secretary of the Agency of Human Services and they couldn't make it in today.
I would agree that it shouldn't be under the secretary. That's my opinion. That's all it is.
No, it's Agency of Human Services. It's Sanders.
Oh, Henderson, I wrote that.
Sanders.
Oh, Sanders.
Secretary.
Yeah.
Anything else for Hillary? I'm assuming maybe we have the AG's office here. I don't know if you'd be interested in testifying. Anything else for Hillary? Okay.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
So Todd, are you the one coming up or?
Chair, do you want to talk about the conflict of interest? So I'm gonna suggest my colleague, Tim Connors.
Okay,
That's great.
So,
Tim Connors, the chair of the AHS Legal Unit at the AGO's office.
let's say that title again.
Chief of the AHS Legal Unit at the AGO's office.
So you're chief of the Agency of Human Services, legal part in the Attorney General's.
Yes.
We have a lot of new folks here that are new to this whole environment. I just want to make sure they understand. So you're there on behalf of the Agency of Human Services, the Attorney General's office.
Yes.
It's all yours.
Well, I'm really here to respond to inquiry.
So the attorney in the AG's office that's assigned to the Agency of Human Services represents both, or did up to recently, both Department of Corrections and the Parole Board.
Yes.
How did that work?
Practically speaking, we just would essentially put an ethical wall between the two, subunits of the corrections litigation unit. The corrections litigation unit is the unit that handles all of the corrections litigation. So they would put an ethical wall between the two, and they just wouldn't discuss what advice was going to Mary Jane and the leadership and the advice that was going to the parole officers as they were presenting cases. So that's how it's worked since I arrived in 2020. So it's awkward. It's not ideal for the same law offices to take two sides. And so the ethical wall was necessary.
It could be conflicting sides.
Absolutely. And it happened. We would take positions, I would advise Mary Jane and the board certain things, and the team that was responsible, it was basically two on one side and two on the other. And the team that helped the parole officers present the cases would take an opposite position. And we literally never discussed the advice we were giving with each other. But it's less than ideal. It's awkward, and it does need to be fixed.
So I'm looking for what you think, how it should be fixed.
Right.
But before I get there, is it my understanding that the parole board now has no legal support from the Attorney General's office? You still do?
It is 10 right now.
Because I have in my notes that that's going away, or
I mentioned that there's some conflict, I think, that's been brought up with the attorney, and this is something I'd look at Todd or Tim to talk about with their policies and procedures about representing a quasi-judicial board. But as of now, nothing is changing. We are still represented, and right now Tim is our interim attorney.
and then James.
Yeah, we're just talking a lot of the budgeting stuff, and is the time coded by the AGs and then paid for by the parole board in any way? Or is it just kind of a pro bono time on your part?
It's just part of our responsibility. I don't want to go to pro bono, but it's part of our responsibilities to advise Mary Jane. And I don't bill for the hours, and we don't time bill.
Because I'm just wondering if there was a way of coming up with an estimate of if the board contracted out for legal services, what that would be, as opposed to bringing on a full-time counsel, which of course is going to be ongoing expense and very expensive.
We did put a line item, I think it was a couple of years ago, I'm looking at Mary Jane, and it was $25,000 is what our estimate was annually to pay to a law firm. I mean, I would say that we have regular conversations, but we could go weeks without talking. I mean, it's not a daily relationship. So we estimated $25,000 to cover a law firm. We did solicit for a law firm. So ideally, the advice to Mary Jane would come from an external law firm, I think, and we would pay a contract to do that, which is not unusual.
Really? It's not too daunting a number, actually. Thought it was going to be much bigger.
How much was it?
25,000.
Well,
a couple years ago. I mean, we haven't.
That was the
yeah.
initial number. I've also heard numbers of, I don't know where that 25,000 came from. I also don't know the budget stream for the AAGs. I don't know if it's a line item in the overall corrections budget. I don't know how exactly that works. And that's another piece I'm trying to figure out of, do we have a portion that we pay towards that payment or not? It's the budget stuff that I don't know. Also, I have also looked at estimates too of 25 to 50,000 potentially. If it was a little bit higher towards the 50,000 mark, it might be a little bit more appealable to somebody to come into the contract versus.
So I'm gonna interject here for the 5 folks who are working on DOC's budget. This would be something to flag when they come in to talk about their budget in terms of what is their budgeted amount for the parole board and what does it go to? And Mary Jane, it might be good for you to sit in. You might find some. James.
I'll hold it because it's really more what's your solution and depends on what your solution is when my question. Because I look at it, it's 2 state entities, which should be represented by the state lawyers, but maybe you guys got a great answer and I don't need to get into the details of my question based on yours.
Do you have any thoughts how to resolve the conflict?
I think number one, you partly resolve it by having outside counsel handle the advice to Mary Jane. So that removes us from that side of the conflict. And right now, the way we're doing business is that we're no longer representing the probation or probation parole officers before the board and presenting the cases. So in essence, it
So we're leaving DOC without representation.
at DOC's request, we are no longer representing the parole officers before the board.
So do those parole officers have any representation? You've got someone here from DOC. I don't know if you can answer.
Gary Marble, Deputy Director of Field Services. Nope, we do not. We present, the goal is to present just like we do in court, which would be that we come to present our violation evidence and let the board make their decision as an independent board.
Are the officers comfortable with that?
I don't know if I could speak as an officer that when I was an officer and we did it that way, we're fine.
To the parole board or to the court?
The board and the court, really, it's not our job to determine the outcome. It's really just to present the impartial information as best we can. And, you know, it's a violation based on evidence and let the board decide that the issue that we've had is that we want to preserve the independent decisions of the board. And we feel that we come into some conflict sometimes when we hold a different position. That's bound to happen when we're talking about complicated cases. But my understanding with the way the board is structured is to maintain that independence from DOC.
So I just want to get this clear. So DOC has recommended that the AG's office no longer represent the P&P officers when they're going before the parole board, but the AG's office is still representing the parole board during those hearings.
Actually, no, I would say it this way. DOC has, I think the way that our representation of the parole and probation officers before the board, the way the statute is set up is that we may represent them upon request of corrections, and corrections is no longer requesting that support. So in response to that, we are no longer providing that support. So that is done. The second part of that is I am still representing, really, I don't want to say advising, I advise the board through Mary Jane, to be honest, but I do have direct communications with the board. So I think that's accurate. I am advising the board in operations, and I do attend, and I say I'm temporarily in the position, but
So it's the AG's office is
Yes.
still representing.
Yes.
The board.
Yes.
However that goes, it could be representing Mary Jane, it could be representing the chair, but that gets to the board.
Yes.
You're there for the board.
And we are giving that advice right now, and we are looking to outsource that to that contract process we just talked about.
And that would come out of AG's budget.
That would be DOC's budget.
That would be DOC's budget because the parole board's under DOC.
Yes.
Is your role in advising, is it during the hearings or is it in between hearings? In between? Yeah.
or litigating if we are in civil court in favor.
I just wanted to see what, if there was a distinction or.
I want to make sure I heard in between is what I heard.
Yes.
So what, Brian?
I don't know if this was already covered and I missed it, but when was the change from sort of representing both sides and having a wall between to doing it this current way? Or did it sort of just happen over time? Was there?
Actually, in the last few weeks, we've rolled that out.
So it's included. So you roll that out, and that would be connected with your general fund budget. I'm assuming. So in your FY 27 general fund budget, is there money to still represent the parole board? Well, it's in DOC's budget, so you wouldn't know.
I don't, and we've been handling, so in terms of AGO budget, it's, we have people, we've been providing those people. So it's status quo for us, to be honest.
But DOC reimburses the Attorney General's office, sort of, there's an internal.
I think if I could try, the DOC pays for the attorneys that, my attorneys that are in the DOC litigation unit are paid for by DOC. I am not, I'm paid for by somebody else, but that's really, as I see it, that's how the money flows. There's no separate chunk of money that comes over to us to pay for that portion. It's just like the statute says, they can ask us to represent the board or to be there for the parole officers, but they've no longer asked us to do it.
But the money is still in DOC for legal representation from the AG's office.
Yes.
Even though they.
Attorneys to support the litigation that they want supported.
So what's DOC's general counsel, not the litigation for Lauren?
DOC's general counsel, her name is Lori Fisher.
Lori?
She used to be in the AGO litigation unit, so that's why it might get a little funky.
Okay, so she's representing one part. And then another part for DOC will be represented by the Attorney General's office.
Yes, and there's a range of litigation that comes our way, so it's not just the parole board stuff.
Todd?
I'm hoping.
So Todd Delos, Assistant Attorney General. I think when I first testified on this bill, and I don't think I did a great job explaining it, but this brings a very important focus on the way the AGO generally is structured. So all of these positions are DOC positions. They are funded through DOC's general fund appropriation. They operate as Assistant Attorneys General and are supervised by the AGO. But the appropriation all flows through. It's not an interdepartmental transfer or anything like that. They are DOC positions. In fact, most of Tim's team, except for Tim and I think one other attorney, are AHS position numbers.
And you're housed in the Attorney General's office?
No, we're embedded.
You're in where?
Embedded. We are embedded in the agencies. So my attorneys,
So are you up in Waterbury?
yes.
Yeah.
And throughout the state for other agencies. So we do all of AHS's agencies.
And so the question sort of about how the duties get divvied up. The AGO as a general matter is authorized to represent the state in court. And the litigation unit, as Kim just said, is that's all the litigation that may come from any entity, with a few exceptions, mostly inmate lawsuits, right? That's what that unit handles a lot of, grievance procedures and otherwise, so that may be now general counsel's office. So there's a little bit of wash, but the parole board is an aspect of the duties that those folks do on behalf of their client, which is DOC. Tim kind of directs or oversees that unit, kind of directs what they do, but it's not like there's a line item that says the parole board and it's this many hours, we're going to pay X amount. It's the duties of that unit. The $25,000 appropriation, it wasn't really an appropriation. And I say this because my old job was at AHS. DOC earmarks some money in their general fund budget to respond to this concern from the parole board. As Mary Jane said, the $25K, we put out an RFP and didn't get anything. So the money, I believe, I would turn to DOC on this, is still there. Because it's never been spent. I think it just rolls forward. And
It's not there anymore.
it's not, okay, it was there for. So to Tim's point, I don't know if that responds to the need for kind of the council role, the advisory role for the board. Because the board still makes its own decisions, right? The lawyer's not saying yes, no, the lawyer's saying, here's how you answer our legal question.
When the money rolls forward, does it keep accumulating?
Don't know. No.
She said it's not there.
It doesn't sound like it's still there.
Yeah, but
The
it's,
money left in FY 26. It's no longer in our line items and it is not being proposed for. It was used for offsets, I believe, in FY 26, and then in FY 27, it was removed completely.
James, did you have something?
No, I was saying that's very informative. I learned a lot from that, so.
I could just make the point that I think the current situation is, of course, unfair to the parole board, but unfair to DOC too, in many ways, because we're asking them to do a lot and also ask to prioritize staff for another entity, essentially. So, I think that just furthers the need to separate the budget line item there.
Well, I want to make sure too that DOC doesn't need legal advice. And what was just testified from DOC, that the officers don't need legal advice because they're only presenting evidence to the board. So we have to be on the floor with this mess.
So
A few minutes ago.
Yeah, so we need more committee time to talk about, be real clear about the Attorney General's conflict. I think we have more clarity now than we did when we started, but I want to make sure that we're all on board. We also need a discussion about the line item situation. Is there anything else I'm missing for that? So we need to have some committee time to talk about this. And we need to get the Agency of Human Services Secretary in. I knew there was a third one. We'll see about having the parole board under the agency secretary as the chair of the board recommended. Anything else? So we will schedule that. I think we have a full floor today, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
I don't know. I haven't even looked at the calendar.
Amendments.
Is there an amendment
One or two.
from Ann?
I think so.
Yes.
It'll take some time, unless they have an agreement. So it looks like we're probably done for today, but just kind of circle around depending on what happens on the floor. And we're back here tomorrow. It's Friday. No, after the floor.
I'm just testing it.
So let's go off of YouTube and we'll see folks on Friday, unless some things by miracle were done on the floor quick.